Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I want to let you know and make a public announcement that tonight I am hiring Mr. Gilbert Jean-Francois as my permanent personal relations manager worldwide. But it's great to be here and to do something for a school that I love. The St. Lucia is the Academy, where I spent 5 good years, started in 1966. I want to begin by thanking I'm glad that my brother Mervyn, who was 2 years ahead of me, finished in the second class at the Academy, is here, and his dear wife Nola. I come to St. Lucia so Nola can spoil me. I must also acknowledge the teachers. I'll comment on the teachers, but also the fellow students I had. And there's one person here tonight who was with me at every grade through primary school and at every grade through high school at the Academy. And that's Claudius Francis. I want to say a quick comment. I agreed when Gilbert told me they're doing this thing to honor the Academy. I said I will come. I didn't know who the honorees would be. And I couldn't be more delighted when I figured out who were the 3 teachers they decided to honor. They're all persons who have had a positive impact on my life. Mr. Walston Charles was my teacher. He taught me English literature. He did a good job. Okay. But more than that, we taught together 1 year at the Academy, and then we went to the University of the Southern Caribbean together as students. And so we have a special bond. And I must also tell you one of my positive memories, my first year in Trinidad at the University of the Southern Caribbean. It was the election for the president of, it was called the ASB, the Associated Student Body. There was a pastor, renowned, gifted speaker, Tobias, who was running to be the president. And some of us came up with the idea that Walston Charles should run as president. He was starting from behind. I put myself to become his campaign manager. And we ran a campaign, and we came from behind, and we won. And those of you who knew Walston Charles back in those days, he would do these programs, and he would call them Amazing Facts. So I called it the Amazing Facts Exposition. And we were able, but Walston is very special to me in so many ways, and his dear wife, Carmen. I do remember going to their wedding at the LaBey Church. Robert Innocent. Robert Innocent was in the same class with my brother, Mervyn. So when I started in Form 1, he was in Form 4. So he was also one of those older model students. When he finished, did well at O-levels, taught at the Academy. When I went to USC, I was a freshman. He was in his 3rd junior year. So he's always been a St. Lucian role model that I could look up to. And in recent years, he's been my attorney. So I have the highest regard for Robert and his family. His brother Freddie was in school with me. I have the highest regard, so I can't think of someone else that should be honored. And then Remus Bryce, I don't want to spend all night talking about Remus, but Remus has been my friend and brother for years. So I want to thank the selection committee for making such excellent choices in the persons they've decided to honor tonight. Before I begin my lecture, let me say a word that is really appropriate talking to a group of alumni of what I have learned over the last 30 plus years as serving as a faculty member in the United States. One of the things God has blessed me with is that I have been honored to have been a faculty at 3 of any list of the top 10 research universities in the United States. On that list is Harvard University, Yale University, and University of Michigan. Do you know what those 3 universities also have in common? All 3 of them are on the list of the top 10 wealthiest universities in the United States. There is a correlation between excellence and wealth. And I want to tell you where the money comes from. In 2004, when I was a faculty at the University of Michigan, they kicked off the largest campaign, fundraising campaign, by a public university in the history of the United States. They wanted to raise $2.5 billion for the university within 5 years. They raised $3.2 billion in 4 years. In 2013, they kicked off another campaign to raise $4 billion in 5 years. They raised $4 billion in 4 years. In 2013, as a faculty at Harvard University, Harvard launched a Harvard campaign to raise $6.5 billion in 5 years. They raised $7 billion in 4 years. Harvard University has an endowment. You know what an endowment is? Endowment is money that they have that they cannot touch the principal. They can only spend, usually they don't even spend all the interest. They spend about 90% of the earnings they get on the interest because they are putting some back to ensure that the principal stays up with inflation and continues to grow. Harvard University has an endowment of more than $40 billion. The wealthiest university in the world. One of the most prestigious universities in the world, the wealthiest university in the world. Where do they get the money? Their alumni. People who graduate from Harvard want to support Harvard because they want Harvard to continue to be better than Yale. Harvard is older than Yale, the oldest university in America. Yale is the second oldest university in America. There's a constant competition between them. Let me tell you the difference it makes when a university has that kind of money. You know what Harvard University is able to do? It guarantees free tuition to any student accepted to Harvard who comes from a family where the household income is $60,000 US or less. Free tuition, 4 years at Harvard. Why can they do that? Alumni gave money, so they have an endowment. In the College of Arts and Sciences, the heart of Harvard College, 60% of its annual budget comes from the endowment. They're not tuition dependent. Their tuition is somewhere around $50,000 a year. But they're not tuition dependent. They're key to their flexibility, and what they are able to do comes from the money their alumni give them. And people who graduate from those institutions understand that if you're going to have an institution of excellence, you need money. And they are committed to their institutions. Let me tell you 2 quick stories. My official title at Harvard University is I am the Florence Sprague Norman and Laura Smart Norman Professor of Public Health. Where does a name like that come from? Where does a title like that come from? Well, there's a man named Mr. Albert Norman who graduated from Harvard in 1912. In 1968, he went to Harvard University and said, I want to establish a professorship in the name of my mother, Florence Sprague Norman, and my wife, Laura Smart Norman. To establish a professorship at Harvard, you need to give $1 million. So he gave them $70,000 while he was alive. In his will, Harvard got $370,000. They let that grow until in 2001, it became $1 million, and then the chair was established. And it means that part of my salary at Harvard comes from that money that Mr. Norman gave. They don't have to depend on tuition. There is a separate stream of revenue that funds that. Let me give you one other illustration. When I joined the Harvard School of Public Health as a faculty member in 2006, the name of the school was the Harvard School of Public Health. That is not its name today. Today, it is the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Why? Because T.H. Chan, an alumnus of Harvard University, gave Harvard University $350 million, the single biggest gift in Harvard history. And the school was renamed the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. That record as the single biggest gift in Harvard history lasted for 6 months, because 6 months later, an alumnus of the School of Engineering gave Harvard $400 million, and they named the School of Engineering after him. Now, folks, I know I'm in St. Lucia. I know who I'm talking to. Some of us may be in that category, but not all of us have those resources. What I want to leave you with tonight before I give you my official lecture is this. Do we have the same commitment? Do we wake up every day thinking that the future of the academy and the future of the students that it will produce and the solution leaders it will produce is in our hands, and that we can make a difference and we can put our pennies together and can invest in the future and make a difference for them? I want to leave you with that. Excellence does not come by chance. It comes as a result of an investment. And for schools that do well, the key to their success is their alumni. That also means, principal, that also means school board members, you got to work with the alumni. You got to listen to the alumni. You got to work hand in hand with them. You got to pull them into your decision making and to your input so that they have an active involvement and engagement. And I know we have plans to do that and to communicate well with them. Okay, let me move on. I thought I would just share with you a little research dealing with one of the challenges, the biggest challenges we face in St. Lucian society and Caribbean society. Throughout the Caribbean and Latin America today, females outperform males at every level of education, from elementary school through university. For example, in 1960, men outnumbered women 2-to-1 at the 3 campuses of the University of the West Indies. But in the 1982-83 academic year, for the first time, the University of the West Indies enrolled more females than males. Since then, the sex imbalance at UWI has continued to increase, and now women outnumber men at the University of the West Indies 2-to-1. In 2017, 70% of the enrollment at the University of the West Indies was female. 70%. There was one recent year, in which 80% of all graduates of the 3 campuses of the University of the West Indies were female. Now, as the father who has raised and is raising 3 strong young women, I am proud of the success that women are making. I'm proud that women are successful and involved in every possible way academically. But as a region, as a country, we face a challenge when there are such imbalances. And let me tell you, our region is not unique. There has been a dramatic change around the world in the last 30 years, with women being more likely to enroll in higher education and more likely to complete a tertiary degree in over 80% of the countries in the world. This reflects a dramatic change. Even in countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Tunisia, and Mongolia, women comprise more than 55% of persons in tertiary enrollment. However, women are not ahead of men in all areas of higher education. Men are more likely to enroll in prestigious and selective universities, and men are still more likely than women to receive degrees in science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM sciences. So the question is, why are women doing so well? There has clearly been the expansion of mass education. There's clearly been changes in gender role attitudes around the world, but something else is going on. For example, research reveals that females do better than males in virtually every aspect of academic performance across their entire career. Girls earn better grades in school in all subjects than boys, and girls are more likely to take rigorous high school courses. Girls have fewer behavioral problems and learning disabilities. They have better social skills and classroom behaviors, and they have higher educational aspirations and are less likely than boys to drop out of high school. Cross-national research finds that females have more positive attitudes to school, spend more time on homework, and have higher educational expectations. What is responsible for this difference? A growing body of scientific evidence is pointing to family structure and gender role socialization. Boys are more vulnerable than girls to growing up in homes with absent fathers and parents with low levels of education. Some research finds that girls look to their mothers while boys look to their fathers in developing their educational aspirations. Accordingly, fathers are crucial role models for their sons, and boys differentially, they suffer more than girls do from the absence of a father in the home. That is, and I'm just telling you, this is not a political speech, but I'm telling you research, that boys from homes with absent fathers have more behavioral problems, lower achievement scores in elementary school, are less likely to enroll and complete college. Some evidence suggests that even our cultural construction of gender identities may play a crucial role. Masculine identities often value physical strength, athletic abilities, and in some contexts, even opposition to school. In contrast, feminine identities often emphasize academic success and indifference to rules and authority. Thus, mentoring, especially mentoring by males for boys, can be a critical support strategy for the academic enhancement and greater success of boys in our societies. How big a problem is this phenomenon of children being raised without fathers? In the United States, the reality is that 2/3 of all black children are being raised without a father. What do you think? Is the rate higher or lower in the Caribbean? In most of the English-speaking Caribbean, over 80% of children are born out of wedlock. In some of our CARICOM countries, it is as high as 90%. In some Caribbean countries, 2/3 of adults have never been and will never been married. 2/3. Now, there are many boys and girls who grow up in fatherless homes and who turn out to be successful members of society. That is absolutely true. But on average, there are serious negative consequences. Studies find that children raised in single-parent households perform more poorly in school, are less likely to graduate from high school, they're more likely to become sexually active at a young age, they're more likely to use illegal drugs, they're more likely to engage in illegal activities. For example, US data. Children from a fatherless home are 20 times more likely to end up in prison, 20 times more likely to have behavioral disorders, 14 times more likely to commit rape, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 10 times more likely to abuse drugs, 5 times more likely to commit suicide. There are consequences. That's the data. So the question is, what can we do about it? And is it the mother's fault why this happens? So let me share with you the work of Robert Sampson. He's a colleague at Harvard. He was at the University of Chicago when he did this. He's one of the premier criminologists in America. What he shows, don't blame the mother, okay? Lack of access to jobs, male unemployment, and male underemployment is the single biggest starting factor. Why do I say that? The decision of a man and woman to get married is the most individual, personal decision two people can make. But do you know, in most Western industrialized countries, we can predict marriage rates just looking at economic opportunities for males? Marriage rates increase when male unemployment rates increase. Marriage rates increase when average male earnings increase. So you can predict the likelihood of marriage by looking at the economic opportunities and success for males. So what Samson shows, the single biggest problem you begin with is looking at the economic opportunities for males. Because in areas where there's high male unemployment and unemployment, there are high rates of out-of-wedlock births, there's extreme concentration of poverty, and single mothers do not as good a job as men in providing supervision of adolescent males. They supervise the girls well, but they are not as successful in supervising adolescent males. So for example, in the United States, Samson shows that the relationship between these factors, male unemployment, concentration of poverty, female-headed households, are identical in sign for blacks and whites. These factors predict violent crime and homicide identically for blacks and whites. Why do blacks have higher rates of crime and homicide? Because they are more exposed to these conditions of high male unemployment, high levels of concentration poverty, high rates of female-headed households, lower supervision of adolescent males. What can we do about it? The key then is to increase the density of support for young males who are being raised in contexts where they don't have paternal role models. Mentoring for boys can be a support strategy for academic enhancement. For 20 years, I served as a board member of an innovative program in the United States, started by a gospel musician by the name of Wintley Phipps, called the U.S. Dream Academy. What that program does, it goes to disadvantaged communities and gets kids in the 3rd and 4th grade in school. You know why we started 3rd and 4th grade? Because in some states of the United States, we can predict the number of prison beds needed in 20 years from now by looking at the academic success of kids at grade 3 and 4. Because kids who fail in school have a much greater likelihood of needing a prison bed down the road 20 years from now. And so let me tell you another statistic from the United States. 2/3 of the crime in the future in America will be committed by the children of current prisoners. Because they're growing up in disadvantaged contexts and they don't even have a father role model. So what we are trying to do with this program and being very successful in doing is how can we break the link between growing up in a disadvantaged context and giving those kids a dream, giving them a vision, and giving them strategies to be academically successful. It's called the U.S. Dream Academy. And what we have done is found that if we can take those kids in an after-school program and give them academic enrichment, test them for where they are weak, and give them tailored academic instruction to help them to succeed, and give them a role model, give them a mentor, someone who will talk to them about the possibilities that they'll have. That program is having enormous success. And I want to leave you tonight with the idea, what if the alumni of the ASD Academy decided that we would become role models and mentors for the young boys in our churches, the young boys in our communities who are being raised by a single parent. Single parents do a wonderful job in so many contexts, but we can make a difference. We can change the future direction of crime, academic success, employment. There are studies that show if you can take young boys, kids aged 3 and 4, provide them academic enrichment, 40 years later, they've done these studies where they've done a randomized control design, which means they take a group and they take some exactly like them and they use them as a control group. They don't give them the intervention. One of those studies called the Perry Preschool Study found 40 years later, those students who got the extra mentoring and academic enrichment earned higher education, earned higher income, were more likely to be married, were more likely to own their homes, had less involvement with the criminal justice system over their lifetime, had less involvement with the social system over their lifetime. And for every dollar invested in the program, there's a $17 return to society. So it actually saves society money. high quality scientific evidence. It means there's a lot that we can do as individual alumni, as individual citizens, to make a difference for our communities and make a difference for the future of the children growing up in St. Lucia. And I encourage each person here to take a more active role in being a mentor. Don't just complain about the young people. Invest your time and effort to make a difference for them. Thank you very much. Actually, before I sit, I heard about this project. I'm going to ask the principal to come forward. I heard about this project of building the library at the USC, at St. Lucia SD Academy. Just trying to see if you're paying attention. And I decided that I would bring with me an initial installment. More books will be coming from me, but an initial installment of books for the young people at the St. Lucia SD Academy, and I want to present that to the principal now. And I hope I inspire others to do likewise and to continue to donate for the school. Thank you.